Today on Weekly Muse, we gotta talk a little bit about the big elephant in the room, and the elephant in the room would be Microsoft.
A $70 billion acquisition?
A very large 700 billion pound gorilla.
700 billion? That's I think you're adding a zero.
A jillion.
A lot of zeros. I didn't think Microsoft had that much money.
Well, yeah, they don't want to tell you. But anyway, for nearly 70 billion, I think it's actually like 68 point something.
It's 70 billion.
It's basically 70. Microsoft has bought Activision Blizzard earlier in the month. And
hold on. They bought Activision Blizzard King. Because Activision Blizzard also owns the makers of Candy Crush.
And that is probably going to be a big revenue stream for Microsoft, I imagine. In fact, it is very likely that because of that, they are going to try to get more into the mobile market.
Great.
That's terrific. I'm so happy about that. Anyway, so there's been a lot of talk about that, and good for them. The thing I'm mostly wondering about is something a lot of people seem to think that this is a great acquisition for Microsoft, and it is one of the biggest like third-party development houses out there. So they are getting a library, but then some folks are kind of wondering if it was such a great deal, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that aspect. To give you a little bit of a reason why I have reservations, it's because of the last big deal that Microsoft made to acquire, we say Bethesda, but it's really ZeniMax, and they paid 7 point something, a little under $8 billion for them. And with that, they not only got Bethesda Softworks, so we've got the Elder Scrolls series, we've got the new Starfield that's coming out, we've got Fallout, all of these IPs, but also all the other game studios that work with them, like Tango, Machine Games, id, Arcane, and like the id game engine is all wrapped up in that too. That's a huge acquisition with a lot of franchises, and it's definitely padding out Game Pass really, really well.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the big arguments I heard from someone, was that they weren't super excited about it, but they're really wondering what this is going to look like for Game Pass. Where suddenly your new Call of Duty games, which are, by all accounts, very popular with people still, that is probably going to come to Game Pass, which means for people who don't want to buy a $60 title, they don't have to. But if it's on Game Pass, and they're paying for Game Pass, so instead of paying $60 every time you want a new game, you can pay the $120 or whatever it is a year, and then you can be like, all right, well, now I've got access to all these games.
Yeah, and I can see that, especially with, like, the Blizzard title. If you had a lot of the Blizzard stuff coming, like, if Diablo 4 was, like, day one release on Game Pass, that would be big. They'd be able to sell a lot of subscriptions for things like that. I think so. But a couple things with that. Right now, Game Pass has roughly, I think last numbers I saw, about 25 million subscribers. And if you figure that people are paying somewhere between maybe $10 and $15 a month for a Game Pass or an Ultimate Game Pass subscription, it's a chunk of change. Like,
it's a small chunk of change.
It's a chunk of change. But let's assume that the games that Activision Blizzard, that they were able to put on their Diablos and the Call of Duties and all of that, were able to get, I don't know, let's just throw out an imaginary number. Let's say increases the Game Pass subscription base by 10 mil, 20 mil, doubles it. Let's say doubles it, okay?
Okay, sure.
50 million. Okay, so you 25 million new subscribers, about around $300 million in revenue every month. We're looking at like 3 billion, maybe 4. Let's say 4 billion a year for Game Pass subscriptions is what you get out of it. it's still gonna take like almost 20 years, right, to actually rebuild what you put in. And it kind of makes me worried, because what I think will probably happen is if Microsoft gets enough of the market share where they're basically the Netflix of gaming, which is what they want to be, and they create more of a monopoly where there aren't a lot of competition, there isn't a lot of competition in that space, they're probably going to raise what the price tag is.
Sure, but they're also going to raise red flags because monopolies are very frowned upon, especially corporate monopolies.
Less so than they used to be. I mean, by the public standard, yes, but by the government standard.
Government standard, typically, they're like, yeah, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
But it's a gaming company, so I don't know if the government would care as much.
I don't know. They haven't really been saying much. They've been kind of quiet on a lot of these, but they've also they've also been approving some mergers that are pretty major in recent years. But
I think they're more interested, honestly. Not that we're getting political here, but I think government is more interested in companies that actually sell services and like things people need, like telecommunications and whatnot, than maybe game company monopolies.
They do seem to be interested in more the tangible assets part of like either factories or energy economies or like automobiles, stuff like that. They seem to be pretty concerned with.
Yeah, things people need more than people just play games.
Yeah.
Anyways,
but no,
we're not talking about government.
It's a point. It's a point. But as Microsoft buys up, because they bought a lot of stuff in recent years, it's not even just the Bethesda and Activision. They bought a lot of other in-house companies. Rare was actually one of the first ones that they got, obviously on a much smaller scale. But something that people were mentioning too is, okay, if you really look at the live, like we can look at Blizzard. Take Blizzard, please. No, take Blizzard. So you have like World of Warcraft, and we've both played World of Warcraft, but the player base is less than it used to be. It's
right.
It's not pulling in quite as much. But
I mean, I did just look again. They still are getting a day-to-day monthly user logins and players of 1.1 million, which is a large amount of players for a game that is released in 2004.
Yeah. No, it's still impressive. I'm not going to get...
And then you also, I didn't look up the WoW Classic, which I think has actually bigger user base right now. Actually, I will look that up.
I was actually really interested when they had talked about Classic, because I was like, oh, that's kind of nice that they're going back to their roots, but...
All right, World of Warcraft. Okay, no, it's not nearly as many players daily, but it is still another 500,000.
Yeah, so there's something. Yeah, I know that they're going to get revenue off of that, but what else about Warcraft? They're not going to... Are they really going to make, like, the strategy games anymore? I don't know if that's necessarily in their future to do, like... Or to make a World of Warcraft 2. Or, like, something...
Electric Boogaloo.
Electric Boogaloo.
I don't know if...
World of Boogaloo.
I don't know if they'd make a World of Warcraft 2. They keep just pumping out expansions for it.
Yeah.
So I don't see a Warcraft 2 so much as I see just them keeping going and improving it, which is fine.
Right. And the other thing too that they're having trouble with, I think, is that the MMO market has gotten pretty competitive. There aren't many competitors in it, but the ones that are out there seem to have pretty loyal fan bases, like a Final Fantasy XIV, and those sort of things. So there are people that will usually migrate to one or the other, because massively multiplayer online usually means I'm probably only going to devote time to one of them and not 10.
Generally, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to play that, all of them. But what else does Blizzard have? So Warcraft, Diablo, there's going to be a Diablo 4, that's going to be great, and then they have the one that's going to be the mobile game, because we all have phones, as we've found out.
That's still not out?
And I don't think so.
Oh.
But...
Damn.
And is it going to be a microtransaction? Why did I even say that? Of course, there's going to be microtransactions for the Diablo mobile game. And then StarCraft, but honestly, are they going to do anything with StarCraft? I don't.
I mean, to be fair to StarCraft, especially if Microsoft is trying to break into an Eastern demographic a bit more, StarCraft is huge in the Koreas.
They probably wouldn't be wrong to make a new installment of StarCraft. I don't see that being a bad move. But I don't know if they're going to. Oh, and then they have Overwatch, I should have mentioned.
Yes, and Hearthstone, if people still play that, I have no idea.
I don't know. And Overwatch has had a lot of other competitors now in the market as well. And then you have, like, Activision. So Call of Duty, as you were saying, very big property for them. But Call of Duty's had some problems in the last few years.
With play Call of Duty.
Here's
another thing. They also get Modern Warfare is Call of Duty, I guess.
Yeah, it is. It's Modern Warfare and then the new Modern Warfare. And then
here's one I don't think you realize that Activision Blizzard does produce as well, and that is the Crash Bandicoot series.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they own that IP.
They own... Wait a second. Crash Bandicoot, that's... who made that?
Well, now it's Activision Blizzard.
Now it's Activision Blizzard. Okay. Yeah, because I'm trying to think. That was built by one of the... Was that Naughty Dog that built that? I want to say... Yeah. I think that was Naughty Dog originally that built Crash Bandicoot. Or Insomniac. It was one of the houses that was really Sony. And there is the other factor here that's worth talking about, which is that Sony did have a lot of different kinds of contracts with some of the stuff that Activision Blizzard was doing, and Microsoft, I should say, has made it clear that they are going to honor all of those.
Yes, which is nice.
It's nice, and also, like, I was watching the Skill Up video on it, and he was saying that's probably smart, because if you're buying that up, one of the less useful things to do was to try and make everything exclusive to one platform. You'd want to cast as wide a net as possible. So maybe it makes sense if they're now going to keep making games for other systems that aren't just Xbox or PC.
Yeah.
I could see that possibly being useful, but it feels like a very, very large amount of money to recoup. You'd have to expect that either they're going to raise rates very high, or they're expecting to have an absolutely massive influx of user base for Game Pass. They're not really relying on the hardware specs. I don't think they're making a ton of money on Series X's. It's pretty big hardware for the $500 price tag. I think they're doing it mostly to sell the games and the Game Passes and all of that stuff they make revenue on.
Yeah, that's a different thing I heard too entirely as well, is Microsoft doesn't actually make a ton of money on their Xbox and their stuff like that, for instance.
No.
But, like, they make so much money everywhere else in the company, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And it is possible that the reason why they're willing to shell that out is because Microsoft, being with their hands in everything and with the revenue streams that they have elsewhere, can ride out for a very long time, if they're thinking real long term, that amount of money. But I keep coming back to the whole thing with, like, Bethesda, and that they got a lot, not just in the game libraries and the studios, but also in, like the id game engine, like all of the tech that they had behind the scenes.
Just imagine now.
Mm-hmm.
They've got Bethesda and they've got Blizzard. And Blizzard does well with MMOs.
It's true.
For instance, they've nailed that pretty solidly. As much as people are gonna shit all over WoW sometimes, you know, they know what they're doing when they design a game.
Oh yeah.
It's lasted this long because, you know, they have an idea of what they're doing, and they constantly add things and remove things to make the experience better for the majority of players that play it, or to get new players in, which is fine.
Oh, sure.
But then you've got Bethesda, who is like, we're going to make an MMO Fallout, and it's terrible.
Yeah, and I've made the case occasionally that Bethesda Softworks probably shouldn't have been the ones that were actually in charge of that.
No, but so
they
take all
studio,
these different
yeah.
Take all these different studios that they now own, and all these different expertise. If Microsoft were to take full direction of that, and I think they're their game director, whoever is in charge of their gaming side, is probably apparently a fairly smart fellow.
I would certainly hope so.
So imagine if you go, all right, well, Blizzard, you're now going to work with Bethesda or the Fallout team.
Yeah.
You know, if they do something like that, and like, we want to make this. We want you guys to work together to make it work, to bring like your expertise on one topic and your expertise in another area, and make a game that is better than the sum of its parts.
Yeah. I can see the possibilities. As I think about this, I'm also realizing Microsoft also owns Obsidian, because of course they do. So now we have who are also very
still not EA.
They're still not EA. Don't worry, maybe they'll try to buy EA at some point. That would be that would be a pretty big issue in itself too. Although, fun fact, if you have Game Pass, you also have access to EA Play. So they actually already have a contract with EA so that you can play like EA's game library if you have Game Pass too. So it's all coming together. I just found out on my Game Pass I can play the whole Mass Effect Legendary Collection. Which I've played the games before, but yeah, I'll probably want to see what they did to update them. That'd be great.
Probably haven't. Anyways, TLDR. We're watching this space.
We're watching this carefully to see what the evolution of it is, and trying to determine if this was a better deal for Microsoft than Active. I think it was a good deal for Blizzard, honestly. They were kind of in a... Despite a lot of issues.
Do we know if Bobby Kotick will be being... gone?
Here's all I really know. They said that he is going to remain, for the moment, as essentially the head. But again, something I thought it was interesting when I was watching SkillUp talk about it was that it would be kind of weird. This isn't technically finalized. Microsoft doesn't currently own them yet. They bought it, but it's not till like 23 or something that we're actually going to see a changeover of hands. It would be very weird for them to start dictating the upper management of the company yet.
Right. If you don't fully own and the deal hasn't gone through, you don't get to make those decisions.
No.
However, in the meantime, everybody watching it can go, Microsoft, get rid of this guy.
You probably
and I'm sure
everybody
who is looking at this is going, Microsoft, get rid of this guy.
And I had heard some rumblings about the possibility that he'd be a consultant or something, but not necessarily in a management position.
Just hope he'd known. Just leave the industry, please.
Just go away. He makes too much money for him to leave the industry. Oh my god.
I mean, even if he leaves the industry at this point, he's walking away with his life set.
Oh, he's fine. No one's gonna worry about Bobby Kotick.
And no one's gonna think about him, hopefully, either.
Yeah, he's, I mean, they've already gotten some of the people that were in, what was the sacrificial lamb, J. Allen Brack, who had to, like, fall on his sword for a lot of it. But, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen to upper management, but it would be very odd for Microsoft to start making those determinations now. They're going to have to make sure that the whole thing is through and that they've worked out all of the kinks, and I would imagine to try and figure out how to restructure it to bring Activision Blizzard into the fold before they can really determine what the upper management of that company, in terms of the larger scale of things, is going to be. But we'll see. It's a possibility. Anything's a possibility here. So, but yes, biggest acquisition in video games ever, and
yes,
kind of had to talk about it, at least for a little bit.